A 9-goal thriller at Craven Cottage. Romero rescues Spurs. Villa come from behind to beat Brighton, and the bottom three begin to drift. Hello and welcome to another episode of More of a Six. Today I'm joined by Charlie. How are you?
I'm good. It wasn't a great game to watch yesterday for Palace, but we got the 3 points. That's what matters.
Of course, Mr. Kyle. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'd probably say the same as Charlie, other than we got a point rather than 3. Not a great game to watch, but tough game, tough place to go, really.
Yeah, for sure. In today's episode, we'll be running through all the Premier League action from midweek, so let's get right into it, starting at Craven Cottage, where it looked to be a comfortable evening for Pep Guardiola's City as they earned a 3-goal lead through Erling Haaland, Tijani Reinders and Phil Foden before Emil Smith-Rowe scored just before half-time. Foden scored his second of the game soon, followed by a Sander Berge own goal to extend City's lead to 4 goals just 10 minutes into the second half. The game looked dead and buried until Alex Iwobi netted to give Fulham hope. A Samuel Chukwueze brace caused serious panic for the visitors, who looked to be making tough work of what should have been a comfortable win. A late flurry of Fulham chances, which included a goal line clearance and added time, wasn't enough to force an equaliser, however, as City escaped London with all 3 points. We're going to have a little chat about this game. I've got a couple of stats to mention. Of course, Erling Haaland scored his 100th Premier League goal. It's just his 111th game in the competition. Absolutely ridiculous. There were also, of course, 9 goals scored in the game despite unexpected goals combined between the teams of just 3.08. So both teams very much outperforming their expected goals. Some very, very nice strikes. Charles, we'll go to you first. I was listening to a podcast earlier with a Fulham fan on, and they were saying that it was almost the best comeback like ever, but and as a Fulham fan, he felt like he experienced a great game, but coming away obviously with no points. What did you make of the game? Did you think that Fulham were probably deserving of an equaliser?
I think deserving of an equaliser might be a bit of a stretch. There was a long period of the game where Fulham were borderline poor, to be honest, and it was far too easy for City. I think City looked really, really good for spells of this game, and it was kind of like, you get the feeling it's like the City we are used to are kind of coming back, but then they concede however many goals so quickly. I thought Chukwueze was terrifying, especially considering we go there on Sunday. I think it's just obvious that he kicks into form just in time. 2 brilliant goals, and I'm not really sure why he got put on the corners for the last 10 minutes. I noticed this. He scored 2. One was from a volley from the edge of the box from a corner, and then he got put on the corners when Harry Wilson went off, which just didn't really make much sense. But I think, to be honest, City probably were the better side overall and deserved the 3 points quite considerably, but made it hard for them. And they've not been great this year, but last few weeks they've slowly but surely shown signs of maybe having a bit of fight in them.
Yeah, for sure. And Samuel Chukwueze has been a big part of that. I think he's been a brilliant signing. Of course, he's there on loan, and ultimately they're probably going to be paying a fee for him to join on a permanent. From the sounds of it, Marco Silva's kind of downplaying his performances quite heavily, just generally. I assume because he doesn't want to pay more than he needs to. But he looks frightening, and as you said, with Palace travelling there on Sunday, that does seem like a bit could be, again, potential loss there. However, just quickly as well, that might be the worst Super Sunday lineup of all time. I think it's Brighton, West Ham,
I think
Palace,
it has
Fulham. It's shocking. It's not Super Sunday. It's not very super, is it? Anyway, Kyle, Man City, as Charlie said there, they definitely played well in parts. Again, I do think that just at times this season they've looked back to their best, but it's only happening for like spells in games instead of spells of matches and periods of games. And kind of like maybe like a month or 6 weeks where they're looking brilliant. It's just maybe 20 minutes in one game, 40 in another, which ultimately, if they're going to win games, is good. But do you just think that they're now, similarly to kind of Chelsea that we'll touch on later, just looking at maybe the top 4 as their only realistic aim for the season?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately that's the difference between them and Arsenal, right? Because Arsenal blow teams away, and even when they're winning 3-4, 4-0, they do not switch off for a moment, and like they protect the clean sheet or they protect their lead. And I just think that City maybe just did get way too complacent. And because, I mean, I don't blame them for thinking that the game was over at 5-1. I think you'd say 9 times out of 10, a game is finished if the scoreline has reached 5-1, right? But that is the difference between them and Arsenal this year. Arsenal kill teams and they just do not give them any breathing room at all, even when they're 3-4 goals ahead. Obviously we'll probably touch on the table and Arsenal obviously winning at the weekend as well, what that means maybe for the season going forward. But I think you're right. I think with how close it is in the table at the moment as well, at 3 points separating 4th and 10th, I want to say, literally just does need one weekend of results not to go your way and for you to lose, and all of a sudden you're out the top 4. So I do think that top 4 is definitely their aim, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't agree more. And I think you're completely right as well with what you said about Arsenal. If Arsenal are in City's position at 5-1 up, the game probably finishes 5-1. I don't see them capitulating in the way that Man City did. But as you said, ultimately they didn't lose the game. And yeah, we'll touch on how congested the league table is a bit later on. We've got a little bit of a new segment that we're going to be doing at the end of the podcast. So look forward to that. Anyway, let's move on to Newcastle 2, Tottenham Hotspur 2. A closely contested affair was played out until the final 20 minutes when Bruno Guimaraes opened the scoring for the home side with what I'd describe as a pretty stunning finish. Spurs found an equaliser shortly after through a beautiful stooping header from Christian Romero, which flew beyond Aaron Ramsdale. The two were then awarded an 81st minute penalty as Dan Burn dragged down Rodrigo Bentancur and somehow earned his side a spot kick. Anthony Gordon stood up to score, but an unbelievable bicycle kick from Romero earned himself a brace and his side a valuable point. Just a couple of stats from the game. Newcastle doubled Spurs' shot count in the game, and Aaron Ramsdale made 0 saves throughout the entire match. The only thing that the main talking point I want to say from this game, firstly, I loved Romero copying Bruno Guimaraes' celebration. Secondly, that bicycle kick is unbelievable. I cannot believe how much it's been disrespected. Do you know how difficult it is to connect with a ball that's dropping from 30 foot in the air? Just on a normal volley, even just to control a ball that's dropping from 30 foot in the air. Yeah, he shinned it slightly, but to manage to get good contact on a ball that's dropping that high with a bicycle kick is absolutely outrageous. Yeah, I think because of how it goes in and the way it kind of bounces through defenders, and that you think maybe Ramsdale should do better. It doesn't look as good. But for me, I just can't believe how disrespected that's being. Of course, Carl, as our Spurs fan, talk to us about the game. Do you think it was a fair result?
I think it was definitely fair based off of the context of what happened during the game. I think that penalty decision was absolutely ludicrous. The referee, when he went to the monitor and then spoke to the crowd afterwards, saying that Bentancur didn't make an attempt to look at the ball. He was fully focused on the player. And it's like, yeah, okay, fair enough. But that happens 8-9 times per game, and you never see them. You never see them awarded for a penalty. And the fact that Dan Burn was also, it wasn't just one-sided. Dan Burn was all over Bentancur as well. And you would usually say they were both going at it. It's just football, get on with it kind of thing. So I thought it was extremely harsh to give that. I don't think the performance was very good. Obviously, the result was good. St James's Park is a very hard place to go to. They're a very unified fan base at the moment with the team. It's a hard place to go to. Say it was a good result. The performance, it's just, that's four successive games now where we haven't registered a shot in the first half, which is just absolutely mind blowing. That is an actual stat.
Did Bergvall not get a shot in with a little flick when it was crossed into him that went just over the bar? Or am I in the first half?
It might not have counted as a shot, to be fair.
I'm pretty sure that was a shot.
I saw it pop up on the little stats there in the bottom left corner, especially around half time or whatever. It came up with that, and I saw a screenshot of it on Twitter as well. But
I swear though, am I wrong? I swear Bergvall had that flick.
He definitely had an attempt, but I don't know. Maybe Sky thought it was a deflection or it came off the so it might not be a true stat, but that's what Sky were labeling it as. But yeah, and it's just pretty clear that there are a few issues in the build-up. How many times have our fullbacks played a straight pass into the winger with their back completely to goal, defender behind them, and it's you're then relying on your winger to turn, beat their man whilst facing away from them. Honestly, if Kudus this season bearing in mind he's got 2 goals, 5 assists this year, majority of the time he gets the ball with his back facing the goal. I would just love to see him where he gets put in positions where he's actually facing the goal when he receives the ball, because it's like it requires so much from him and so much from our wingers. It's just really boring, basic tactics.
I really noticed it because you said it, Carl, because you pointed out last time about the playing down the line and these guys back to goal. And I noticed it genuinely about 5 or 6 times. Like literally the only time he receives the ball is a straight pass down the line from the fullback. And he's got a man on him, a man in front of him. It just not using him to his strengths, is it? He's such a good one-on-one attacker. He's so good one-on-one, maybe one of the best in the league. And it just feels like the system that you're currently playing with him in it is just kind of wasting his talent.
Absolutely. I mean, other teams are picking up on it as well. Against Arsenal, majority of the time he was getting doubled up on anyway. So Horo would play that same straight line pass down the side. Kudus would have Calafiori and whoever, Mosquera or Hincapié coming over and doubling up on him. And it's like, yeah, it sometimes works, but that's not down to the tactical part of it making it work. It's down to Kudus being an incredibly good player and somehow getting something from it. But I don't know. Good result nonetheless, just a bad performance.
To Bergvall. I was really impressed with Bergvall. I just want to say Bergvall was so good in the first half, especially. I sent a message into our group chat. It's just a couple of his little touches. He's always looking forward. It's very hard to dispossess, which is kind of doesn't look like a player that would be hard to push off the ball, does he? Like, he's not very big, but he's
taller. He's taller than you think. Like, he's like 6'1", 6'2". He's like he's a big lad. He just doesn't look it.
I think it's probably because he's so young as well. Because I don't know, something about. I know exactly what you mean though. Anyway, well, let's go through. We've broken the quickfire up amongst the episode because there were quite a handful of games that weren't very interesting. So there's 2 here. Firstly, Everton against Bournemouth, or I should say the other way around. Everton hadn't won away at Bournemouth for over 9 years. And that was a 2-0 win in the FA Cup back in 2016. That curse was to change, however, as David Moyes' side edged out 1-0 winners, courtesy of an extremely heavily deflected Jack Grealish strike. And then we go to Molineux, where Nottingham Forest ran out 1-0 winners against Wolves. Igor Jesus scored the only goal of the game, after having a first-half strike ruled out, as Forest piled ever more misery onto Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, Brighton versus Aston Villa. On Brighton captain Lewis Dunk's 500th game for the club, Brighton looked sure to win when they took a 2-goal lead in the first half. However, Ollie Watkins returned to haunt the side that he does so well against as he scored a late first-half brace. After the break, Villa pushed on and found themselves 4-2 up after finishes from Amadou Onana and Donyell Marlin in front of the travelling support. Jean-Paul Van Hecke scored his second of the game late on with a truly brilliant strike, to be fair, from outside the box, but it wasn't enough to earn his side any points. I mentioned Watkins' form against Brighton. He scored 9 and assisted twice in his last 10 Premier League games against the Seagulls. And the win was Villa's 12th in their last 14 in all competitions. They are absolutely flying. And of course, I believe up to 3rd in the table as things stand. Villa are doing very well, Charlie. Talk to me about that form. And is it because obviously they had such a torrid start to the season. And yes, it was only 5 games where they didn't score a single goal. It looked very bleak. But ultimately, it did always feel like they had the squad and with Unai Emery, the manager, to kind of come back into it and really kick on. And to be honest, they've definitely exceeded what I thought they could even do from there.
Things don't go wrong for too long at Villa under Emery. He's just such a great manager, isn't he? And he always gets them backfiring. And honestly, the run they were on, the fact that the team that one of the teams that beat them in that run was the Slots Liverpool, who are in obviously such a terrible run of form. It's just strange. That's funny how football works. I think the fact that Watkins had scored 1 goal season and he comes into this game, he scores 2. It's fairly damning to show his record against. I feel like those things are real in football, aren't they? It's like Sarr against Villa, Watkins against Brighton. They just are a thing. But no, I think that Villa are really impressing me at the moment. I was particularly happy to see them win last night for no obvious reason. And to be honest, I feel like they, again, genuine contenders to be in that top 4, top 5 by the end of the season. And they're really stringing together a strong run of form.
Yeah, man, and they've kind of established themselves as a Champions League club, I think, now at this stage. I know they're in the Europa League this year, but obviously had consecutive seasons in the Champions League, did very well in the tournament last year, ultimately knocked out by Paris Saint-Germain, who, of course, as we know, went on to win the whole thing. I think that Villa just are a very good squad. Kyle, for Brighton, they're in that kind of pack of 6 teams from 4th to 10th that are all I think just separated by 3 points. It really is very open, and I feel like it's probably the best chance out of any chance we've ever had for a team like Palace, Sunderland, Brighton, that kind of ilk to really maybe qualify again in the league format. And that's, of course, before we know the outcome of the European competitions. You'd imagine could be quite likely that we'll see 8 English teams qualifying for Europe, with Arsenal maybe winning the Champions League. You're not going to want to hear that. But then maybe Villa winning the Europa League, and hopefully, touch wood, Palace winning the conference. How important do you think it is that a team like Brighton just kind of, and Sunderland and Palace, just kind of maintain that kind of steady progress and make sure that they're trying to pick up results where they can? Of course, you're not going to win every game, but with how tight it is, and as you said, how quickly things can change if results go against you and you lose, how important do you think it is that you just need to kind of put each game to a side and just focus on the next one?
I mean, it sounds so stupid and obvious to say, but I think like the biggest thing that those sort of teams need to be focusing on is not necessarily the teams in and around them, but perhaps the teams that they should be beating. Because I think that's been an issue for a lot of the teams kind of near the top half this season. For example, Chelsea getting a point against Arsenal with 10 men, brilliant. And then literally just 3 days later, dropping points to Leeds, who haven't looked too great the last couple of weeks. So I think for sides like that, just carry on what they're doing. Don't focus too much on kind of the teams above them or maybe like slightly below them. Just the games that they should be winning, just don't drop points, because like you said, it's so close. All it takes is just one bad week and for teams below you to have a good week. Again, it sounds really obvious me saying that. You lose, other teams win. That's not good. But I think this season it's tight.
Yeah, it's more than ever that's okay. So I get what you're saying, but I don't think it is important to say, because I don't think we've ever seen it this tight. I do think that December is going to be a really important period in terms of how many games teams are playing, and I think the league will start to stretch a bit, especially for teams like Sunderland with AFCON coming up. They'll lose a lot of players. But yeah, ultimately a very good win for Villa. Let's move on to a couple more quick fire. We've got 3 games here to rattle through nice and quickly. Firstly, Arsenal continued to win as they dispatched Brentford 2-0. Mikel Merino put the Gunners up 1-0 before Bukayo Saka's, why did I say his name so weird? Bukayo Saka's strike was too powerful for Kelleher to stop. Poor goalkeeping, I think you'd have to say, but ultimately another win for Arsenal. They maintained 5 points at the top of the league. After suffering their first home league defeat since February at the weekend, Palace faced another potential banana skin when they travelled to Turf Moor. It was a game of few chances, but we saw the marauding wingback Daniel Munoz score the only goal of the game, earning Palace a big 3 points. And finally, tonight as we record, Manchester United won, West Ham 1 after their win against Palace. Manchester United turned their attention to West Ham. Diogo Dalot made it 1-0 to the host, but the fear of dropping points crept back in, and a late West Ham corner saw Jarrod Bowen come close before the ball fell to Songutu Magasa to score his first Premier League goal and earn his side a point. Charlie, I assume you want to have a little word on the Palace game. What did you make of it?
God, it's uninspiring at the moment, I'll be honest. I think it's very easy, I think, to use the excuse of the depth and the fatigue. And as much as that obviously is playing a factor, it's very noticeable that in the second half of games, we drop off. I think last night overall, 90 minutes, first half, second half, I think we were really poor. And I think players that were coming on that haven't been playing as much were also really poor. Like Will Hughes came on, and he's been so reliable for us over the years, and in recent times especially, and he passed the ball out of play once or twice, and it's just like little things like that. I just feel like we lacked intensity massively. And also I think it might be a mental thing that as soon as we went a goal ahead, because of what's happened in the 2 games prior, we're kind of like dropping in, and it feels like players are almost like, it looks like the players are thinking, I don't want to concede, we might throw this way, we might throw this way, we might throw this way, kind of thing. Yeah, look, I'm not going to complain too much. 3 points. Look at where we are on the table. The fact that we're kind of not satisfied, it just seems crazy, but it's valid. I think it's valid because it's a missed opportunity, it feels like. But yeah, I think just keep it ticking on to Sunday. I think Sunday's a big game. And if we can win on Sunday, I feel like we really could be up there at the end of the season.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, and like I said, again, it comes back to the same thing. Coming into December, especially for the clubs that are playing in Europe, you'll know it, Kyle. We definitely know it. A lot of games, and obviously this week, unfortunate that the 1 week that we're not playing in Europe, we had to play in the Premier League. So again, no break there. Anyway, Let's move on now to Leeds 3, Chelsea 1. With the top of the table as congested as it is, as we keep mentioning, because it is mental, Chelsea travelled to Leeds with work to do to keep up. A 6-minute opener for the host, however, via Jakob Bijol probably was not what they were hoping for. Ao Tanaka made it 2 with a super strike from just before the break. That was an absolute corker. And then second half, when Pedro Neto found the net in the 50th minute, it looked as if Chelsea could mount a comeback, especially with Cole Palmer's return. He came onto the pitch and came very, very close with a drilled effort with his left foot just inside the box. Unfortunately, went wide for Chelsea and Leeds went up the other end. And after some absolutely torrid defending, Dominic Calvert-Lewin was able to score the deciding goal. So, Charlie, firstly, Ruben's not on the podcast. I dare to imagine what he'd be saying about this defending. What do you reckon?
I can tell you, actually, he sent me a message last night. If you want me to read this out,
Go for it. I'd love that.
I'm sure he'd want to have his Tosin needs to be killed. Chalobah is shocking. João Pedro can only do flicks. Has no footballing ability. Delap can't shoot. Enzo looks so tired. I'm depressed. Was the messages I received from Ruben. So I think that kind of sums it up. I watched the game. I was really impressed with Leeds. I think that they genuinely deserve to win this game. I think what Leeds did last night is the blueprint of what a promoted team at home should be doing in games. They were aggressive. They brought Chelsea down to their level. They were physical. They ran a lot more. I thought Ampadu was brilliant. And he did a great job on Enzo, which I personally love to see because I think Enzo Fernandez is a bit of a knob. Yeah, I was really impressed with Leeds. I thought the two up top were causing lots of problems, Calvert-Lewin and Nemecha. They're not two incredibly technically gifted strikers, but they're big and they cause problems and they're chaotic. And sometimes that's all you need. And a great finish from Tanaka, a really good header from Bijol, and the limbs for that were great, like so early on. I really like watching games at Elland Road. I think it's a great fan base, always good atmosphere. And I think they did exactly what they needed to last night, and I was really impressed.
For sure. And Kyle, again, as we mentioned so many times this episode, it's so congested, and that defeat for Chelsea has, it's definitely not killed them. They're fourth, they're on 24 points, but it's now 4 points between them and second. How many points is that? 9 points between them and first with Arsenal. Do you think that this is it just kind of proves your point, doesn't it? That if you lose and the teams around you win, as Arsenal did, as City did, as Villa did, as Palace did, it can really change how you can look at your season. I mean, after Palace lost to Man United, we were 11th and now we're 5th. It's very much a case of swings and roundabouts. But do you think Chelsea, again, similar to City, it's just kind of hoping to finish in that top 4?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's really all they've got in their locker, to be honest. I think for the amount of money that they've spent in the last couple of years, their defence, like if you look at some of the names that play in the defence, barring Cucurella and Reece James, who obviously Reece James didn't pay anything for, it's really not that good. It's the amount of money they've spent. If you'd have said this team's spent in the last 4 years, they've spent near £1 billion, you would expect some next level kind of Real Madrid level Galactico.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that though about Real Madrid, because there's an argument to say that in the centre backs that Chelsea have sold or let go from the club, they'd have a better pairing than they currently do. If you think Mark Gay, Rudiger, I
it's
think
not even an argument. I don't think that's even an argument. I think those two are easily better than two they have.
Yeah, even now, Rudiger, must be in mid-30s now, but he's still playing for Real Madrid. I think that's. Carl, do you think there's an element where it's they've kind of just focused way too much on signing superstars, and ultimately the superstars that sell the most shirts don't tend to be defenders? I mean, other than probably Virgil van Dijk, there's probably not many defenders globally that are going to sell you those shirts and get that kind of hype and excitement. But it's the attacking players, and that's why they focused on that.
I get that to a degree, but then it's also they've signed. They don't necessarily need to be buying that quota of superstar defenders. They just need to be signing solid, established defenders, because the amount of players that they've signed in the last couple of years that, for example, Estevao, is Quenda joining in the summer?
He is, yeah.
Quenda joins this summer, and then I think Sat Payev and the other lad joined the summer after.
Emmanuel maybe joins in the summer as well.
That's what I mean.
Kenji Paez, Mike Penders. It never ends.
But like including Estevio as well, they've signed some really big like young names. Like if that's what they're focusing on, like you've said about the whole defenders don't really sell shirts kind of things. I just don't think. I don't know. I'm trying to make a point.
Woke
No,
nonsense.
I
That's
get
what
what
it
you're
is.
saying.
If you're focusing on selling shirts, that's utter woke nonsense, mate.
100%. But I think the biggest comparison you can make is between them and Arsenal. You look at Arsenal and how they've kind of built their squad. They've also brought in those superstar names, but then they've got probably that. I'd say that their depth centre-back partnership of Mosquera and Hincapié is better than Chelsea's centre-back partnership of Tosin and Chalobah. I don't think that's outlandish to say. And I think that's probably the biggest issue for Chelsea. Anyway, we'll move on. And let's go over to Anfield, where Liverpool's poor season looks to continue as Sunderland went 1-0 up through Chemsden Townby. Liverpool did continue to push, however, and in the 81st minute, Florian Wirtz danced beyond challenges in the box to force in a strike off Nordi Mukiele. Again, unfortunate, I think, for Wirtz not to get the credit of the goal. He did very well for me. He's maybe starting to come into it a bit. But ultimately, I think the biggest talking point for me is obviously a good point for Sunderland. But with the African Cup of Nations just a month away, it is crucial, especially for Sunderland, that they continue to build points now, because to be honest, I don't think they can really predict or know how the loss of I think it's between 7 and 9 players. I don't think they can kind of predict how that's going to truly impact them. Kyle, with AFCON coming up, there's a couple of teams that are heavily impacted. Manchester United are one of them. Palace losing a key player in Ismaila Sarr. So I'm sure Spurs losing a few. Everton is kind of every team now, whereas that didn't really tend to be the case, a few years ago, maybe more so the smaller clubs. But for Sunderland, they are going to get hit hard. Do you think that they've set themselves up well? And also, do you think that there might be a part where this could be where Sunderland start to fade? I don't want them to. I'm quite enjoying it, but I just think that if they're losing these players, they go on a bad run during January, the players come back into a deflated press squad. I just think that could be the start of a bit of a downward spiral. What do you reckon?
You know what? I'm going to go on a limb here and say that I think it would probably be for the best if they do drop down a few places. I think the only reason they are where they are is because of how inconsistent the top sides have been. If, let's say, in some hypothetical world, they qualify for Europe next year, they are screwed. They do not have the firepower to compete in, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, Premier League, and the Europa League or Conference. I doubt they'll get Champions League, but
God forbid the Champions League
or Conference League. But I think everyone would have expected Sunderland. We said at the start of the year, other than Corey, who said 13th, he's looking like a bit of a genius now. But we all said that they'd kind of be in and around the relegation scrap, maybe staying up.
Didn't he say European charge? I swear he said European charge.
He did. I think there were murmurings of a European charge.
Shaka player of the season. We all laughed at him, by the way, but Shaka probably might be signing of the senior season of the Premier so far.
He said Wirtz flop as well. Every day he's looking like a genius.
I think it was so emotional though that none of us believed it. We thought it was all just...
He's not been on the pod for the last 18 episodes. So genius comes at a price by the looks of it.
I just think that if they finish mid-table, they're just going to stay up, really, aren't they? I think it'll be such a good foundation for them to build on, have another good window, and then kind of focus on pushing again. Because I just think if it comes too early of them playing in more games, more competitions, I could really see them then next season really struggling in the league. And I think they'd probably prioritise league stability over getting into Europe in the long-term picture, if that makes sense.
100%, yeah. They've got to establish themselves as a Premier League team. That's got to be the first goal of any promoted side. Charlie, Liverpool is just a transitional season. Can you see them breaking into that kind of top six?
I definitely can. I can definitely see Liverpool getting, their mojo back. I think it's just going to be a matter of, trusting in the manager and biding time. But no, definitely, I feel like Wirtz, I was almost sad for him that he didn't get that goal last night, because it's just like, that's just a bit mean. Do you know what I mean? Like, they definitely could have given that to him. But yeah, Liverpool, I can definitely see Liverpool being up there by the end of the season.
For sure. Anyway, let's move on to the new segment for the podcast, Table Talk. You guys will be able to see the parts of the table that we're talking about flashing up on the screen. But first, we're going to talk about how the results have impacted the league table, of course, starting with the bottom half. Wolves stay very much rooted to the foot of the table. They're still winless. Leeds win, but put 2 points between themselves and the relegation zone. And there are, of course, as you can see on your screen now, 4 teams on 19 points from 11th to 14th. So there's not just congestion at the top. 2 talking points from that relegation battle will go to you, Charlie. What do you make of it at the minute? Do you think that the bottom 3 that's there now are going to go down?
I'm sorry, I was just distracted by Kyle shaking his head when he said 4 teams all on 19 points because he knows Spurs is one of them. I think I just can't see West Ham getting relegated. I don't know about you boys, but I don't see a world where, and I can't really see Forest getting relegated either, and I can't see Fulham getting relegated. So I think it's going to be Leeds. Even though they looked really good last night, it's just I think the other 2 just have too much quality. I feel like West Ham just will come through under Nuno and Forest under Dyche. I just can't see them getting relegated either. But no, West Ham weren't great tonight. They put up a good fight and they got their point. I don't know. I don't think I can see West Ham going down. And I don't really see, like I said, there's not really much else to say. I really want Leeds to stay up, and they looked really good last night, and they have kind of the foundations of a team that could, but I just think there's too many teams better than them.
Yeah, potentially. But then the only caveat I would say is that West Ham do have a very tough run of fixtures coming up. I think they face, it's Brighton at the weekend, and then I think they've got Villa and City. I could be wrong, but I think that's what they said on Sky. So yeah, not great. And ultimately in that time, Leeds could try and build a bit of a gap. Kyle, the other talking point for the bottom half, of course, is going to be, do you think that the kind of mid-table teams are set in place now? And I'm not just winding you up about Spurs. I'm talking more about, the Brentfords, Bournemouths, Fulhams and Forest of this world. I think Forest, this was quite predictable. I think that maybe they're just where they should be. I think they punched above their weight massively last year to get into Europe. And that's not just because of what happened between Palace and Forest. I'm kind of over that, to be honest, and I have been for a while. But I do think that kind of your Brentford, your Bournemouth, your Fulhams and your Forest are those kind of 16th to 12th place teams that aren't really going to be punching much higher. Do you think that's kind of how that bottom half is going to look, with that selection of teams in there?
Yeah, I think so. I just think, like you said, with Forest, and they definitely did overachieve last year. The fact that they were actually within shouts for the vast majority of the season of them actually getting a Champions League spot, it was only until the last couple of weeks where they kind of trailed off a little bit. I do think those teams set in place at around the mid-table point. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Charlie actually a few weeks ago, where he made a point about Fulham, how there's Fulham, Bournemouth and Brentford, where all the other teams kind of have a few players who could perform well in the top 6, but Fulham, they don't really have that. They maybe have 1, maybe 2 at a push. So I do think those places are set. But I mean, Tottenham versus Brentford at the weekend, I'm not even just saying it because I'm a Spurs fan, but that is, in the grand scheme of things, quite a big game, because they are 2 teams that are very close to each other as well at home. We've won 3 times this calendar year at home, 3 times out of 21.
Oh, that's depressing. That's so depressing.
That is more times than Palace have lost at home in the league since February. Not to rub it in. Anyway, let's move on now to the top half. And as you'll be able to see on your screens now, Arsenal maintain their 5-point gap at the summit. Palace are up to 5th, with Sunderland, Brighton amongst the clubs hot on their tails, with only 2 points between Palace in 5th and Everton, as you can see there, in 10th. So let's discuss the fight for the European places. Is it simply too hard to call at this point? And will, as we said earlier, we have a better idea of where teams could finish once December is out of the way? Charlie, we'll go to you for this one, mate.
I think the entirety of the top 7 currently, bar Sunderland, will be up there come February. That's what I'm going to say. I think we will be up there. I think Brighton will be up there. I think the top 4 will definitely be up there, Villa included. I think they've been really good. I can't see United. I just don't. I know they've been better lately and they've had this good run of form at home. And obviously, apart from that loss against Everton, they won 4 in a row and then they drew tonight. But I just don't think that they're as good as these other teams around them. I think we're better than them. I think we were definitely better than them last weekend. We should have got more out of that game. I think Brighton are definitely better than them. I think Brighton will be up there. I really hate to say it, but I think they've improved from last season. And I think last night, this Villa team are losing to Villa isn't embarrassing at all at the moment. Like, they are a very good side, and they really put up a good fight last night against Villa. And maybe could have got a point out of that game on another night. But yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say. I think that Arsenal are going to win the league. I think that's a lock. And yeah, I think that all the teams in the top 7 right now will be in and around there, apart from Sunderland. I think they might fall off a bit because of AFCON.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's completely fair. And yeah, it's exciting to see, man. And I think it would be fair to say that over the next kind of month to 6 weeks, things may start to spread out a little bit, and we might get a better understanding of kind of the rough positions, kind of the 1 to 3 positions where teams could finish. Kyle, of course, Arsenal maintain their place at the top. They've won 3 of their last 5 with 2 draws. So not the best last 5 results that they would have hoped for, but ultimately, I think the reason that you'd have to say that they're going to win the league is purely because whilst other teams have been fluctuating between being good and bad and a bit all over the place, Arsenal have just kind of been a steady constant. Of course, they've only lost 1 game this season, and that was early on to Liverpool. They've got a plus 20 goal difference already. They've only conceded 7 goals in 14 games, so they're conceding 1 goal every 2 games in the league. I'm not expecting you to be wanting to chat about this too much, but do you think this is kind of sorted now? Are you kind of accepting it?
I think if they don't win the league, that actually might go down as one of the biggest bottles of all time, especially considering we get labelled as for the 2015 season where Leicester won it. I think we were top of the league for about half an hour in total, and we got labelled as bottling that league. I think if they don't win this, that is a genuine embarrassment. All the other teams have just been not poor, but just definitely not worthy of being a league winner. They've just not been consistent enough. Yeah, but I do think that unfortunately they probably will win it. They credit where it's due. They are an unbelievably good side.
Yeah, they are brilliant. I think it takes a big man to accept that, especially about his rivals. So fair play to you, mate.
I saw you grinning there at the idea of them bottling it. I saw that.
There's hope. We can pray. Anyway, I think that's probably enough for today's episode. Thank you so much, Charlie. Thank you, Kyle. We hope you've enjoyed, and we will see you on Monday to talk about the weekend's Premier League action, where we will be talking about Kyle's win against Brentford. Kyle's win? Spurs' win against Brentford, Kyle? Is that going to happen?
We're at home, so we ain't winning.
No. It's going to be a perfect weekend. It's going to be the first perfect weekend of the more of a 6 this season. Or is it the second?
I think it's set up.
We've had one.
No, it will be the first.
We've had one.
I don't think we have. I think
it'll
be the first.
Yeah.
Because Spurs keep letting us down.
Go on, Spurs.
So then obviously that would unfortunately mean we need Brighton to beat West Ham, which hopefully won't happen. Anyway, that's all for today's episode. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, to like, subscribe and comment. If you're listening on Spotify, please follow the pod and rate 5 stars. We have 6 5-star reviews. Fucking get in there. Keep smashing those reviews, and we hope you enjoy it. And we will see you on the weekend. Have a good one. We hope your teams win, unless you're a Brighton fan. Ta-ta. Bye-bye.